Okay, we'll try this again. I want to make sure this is recording. Okay, I got a little bit done and then found out that it didn't record from the beginning, so we'll start over. So we're looking at this horn. This has been lying around in my place for a long time. I don't know how long. I like to start with the octave mechanism here. You want to take pictures of everything. Saxophones are so different. So I'm going to take a picture of that octave mechanism so I can remember how it fits together. I want to take a picture of how these keys along here overlap. And this front stack, we're going to work on the upper stack in this video and for your starting out. So I'm taking a look. I'm noticing I'm missing some pearls, a couple pearls. I may be able to make some pearls. This is an old con. Let me see. Yeah, an old con. Not ancient, so saxophone people don't get your hopes up. And I want to take a look at what we've got over here for the palm keys. See how they're overlapping. For those of you who've been doing clarinet, you know things overlap. I want to take a look at these side keys, the B flat and the C. So I want to have an idea of if I get lost or get screwed up or things get knocked off the bench, I'll be able to put things back together. Looks like I've got a connection there with my G sharp key overlapping here, connected. Okay, so I'm going to start with the octave mechanism. Also, I notice I'm missing a neck screw. I'll probably find one. You also want to look at this octave mechanism here, the connector for the neck. On a lot of saxophones, it sticks out over the end of the body, and so you have to have an end plug in there to make sure that this doesn't get hit and get bent. Yamahas have one that's flush with this, but most other saxophones that I've seen, it all sticks out, so make sure you have that end plug in there. And you want to check to see if this is bent. And you see the little rocker mechanism there. Alright, so let's see. I think I'll start with the octave key itself, the thumb key. I'm gonna unhook the spring. There it is. I moved it. I'm gonna unhook the spring over here. Oh, it's not going to move because the post is interfering. So, pull that out. And there we go. So, and then your saxophone board, you can put it there. I'm going to put these parts together in a group. So then I've got a long rod that's going through the rest of the parts of the octave mechanism. So I'm going to pull those out. Rod, back it out until it stops moving. Then grab it with your pliers perpendicularly, pull it out. And stick that in your board where you know where it's going to go. Okay. And then, on this one, the rocker is equal length on both sides. Some I've seen are not equal, so be careful. And remember how it goes together. This rocker comes off of that arm, and it also goes into the hole in the upper little octave thing. So I'm going to lay those out in a group on the bench. Okay. See? Okay. Now, in the earlier part that I recorded, I was sighting from the top down the length of these rods. And I noticed that there was kind of a conversion here, and it's still a little bit there. So they're not exactly parallel, which means, and that happens a lot, probably this post got knocked. So I'm going to tap it a little bit with my rawhide mallet. You don't want to grab things with pliers. You don't want to grab posts with pliers, because now I'm sighting down that rod to make sure it's straight. And then I still see a little bit of bend in the rod along this one. So when I get this off, I'm going to tap a little bit on that post. Don't tap really hard, because you can knock them off of the body. So you want to make sure you don't knock them off the body. Also, I see that this rod is bent right there. So there's a pivot screw up here. Now pivot screws can go back anywhere because they're all the same. There may be some smaller ones, but you remember where to put those. I'm going to release this spring. Then I'm going to lift this up. And if you look, see how that, you can see how it's bent a little bit. So I'm going to bend it back. I'm just going to take it, and of course I'm going to sight down the length of that rod and make sure that it's straight. I'm going to rotate it around. I'm going to straighten it as much as I can. Now you can easily bend long hinge rods. You can bend in the middle. At the ends, it'll be a little harder to do, but you can do it. And you want to make sure they're all straight. Now I'm going to sight down the length of this rod again, and it still looks a little off, but I want to make sure that I don't hit this post. Gotta look and make sure I'm in the right place here. Let me see. Okay, I'm going to move that camera down. I don't want to hit this post with the mallet. I just want to hit this post. This one, not this one. So I'm going to take, I've got a brush that I use. I'm going to take the end of that brush off. I'm going to use that as a tool against that second post and tap it a little bit, rather than try to hit it directly. I'm just going to tap it a little bit and move it over. It's still a little off. And this one's a little more beefy than the other one. I think it's almost there. And I'm not banging really hard. And you'll see another technique in the future where you actually bang the bell against the table to straighten the body, to straighten the bell. All right, I think that's a little better. And I'm going to try one more little tap. You want to be careful, because you don't want to knock the post off, because you've got a much bigger job then, and you're just trying to straighten things out right now. Yeah, okay. Well, it looks better. Yeah, I'm not convinced yet. Okay, so I'm gonna, and remember you've got layers here, so I'm gonna take this off, put my brush back together, take this top one off, and this is a pivot screw. For the G, this is your G key. And also I'm missing a pearl. Release the spring. The springs are going to be all different places. And then it looks like I've got, it's kind of hooking underneath. You see where it's hooking underneath there? So, and I'm looking at the other end. The other end is supported with a rod coming through here. So I'm going to take that rod out. So that's going to come out. So that's going to come out. And my monitor just went off. Okay, we've got a lot of setup to do here. Our video programming is still in its infancy. So that's the G sharp pad that's coming off. So got this rod in here. Let's see, put that there. Now, oh, I've still got a problem. I've got the G sharp key that's blocking the G from coming out. So I'm going to take that off. And it looks like this rod goes down and supports the top of the B flat pad. So once I get that out, I don't have to worry about that for right now. And usually we work on the G sharp key on the lower stack because it's on this left side plateau. Let's see, I'm going to unhook that spring. The springs are all going to be different. All the keys are going to be different. Your saxophone probably isn't going to be the same as this, but we'll get an idea of what we're looking for. So I've got that lever off. So I've got those, the G sharp key hanging together there. And there's another. Now let's see. Okay, now I have room to lift the G key and take it underneath up here. You see how it has a little hook that was underneath there. So now I can just, now I've got room to pull it out. And remember, things overlap. Now I'm down to the fingers, and they're on a long rod through here. So I'm going to take that rod out. Alright, I turned it out where it stopped. I'm going to loosen the springs, release the springs, so I can pull the rod out. When the springs are on there, they're putting tension against the keys. So I've got that. Now, I'm looking at it. Remember, I want to look and I want to put these down on the bench in the order they're coming off of the saxophone, so that when I put them back together, they're in that order. Now I've got one left here, which is our 1-in-1 B flat. This is your B flat. It looks like there's a pivot screw at this top end. Let's see if I can put, gotta find places, and I want to release that spring and then pull that off. Okay. So now I've got the front keys off. Now I'm going to go to the palm keys. Looks like my D on the outside is the easiest one to get off. Remember, they overlap. So usually D, and then I'm going to set those together up there. I've got a hole for the D. And looks like these overlap, so let's see, and they come out from this side. And they have flat springs on them. So they might jump off. This one didn't jump off because it's being held by the, you want to look at the springs. I noticed the first time around that that spring is pretty rusty. So we'll be cleaning those up. I've got one more palm key. Yep, and you see the spring will push the thing off, and you look at that, you've got to clean that up a little bit. And stick that. Now those are different lengths, so you don't want to mix them up. Then we've got the two side keys, the C and the B flat. And those are a couple short rods You can see, so we'll take those off. Let's see here. Trying to get it in. Well, I'll do it from this side. So here's the C. The upper one is the C. And for those of you who aren't saxophone players, we've got to learn the names of these things, just like we did on clarinet. So that comes off, and it's being held with a little connecting arm there, so you can just lift that off. And then this, the connecting arm, suddenly is free. It's pushed by a spring, but without that, it's going to be loose. Then I'll get the B flat and that's another rod, and of course it's got a flat spring on it that, or the thing. Some have flat springs on them. These are sprung with the levers, as you can see. So you're going to find lots of different things when you take saxophones apart. Now this is as far as I got on the first video. I put some oil and some heat on that post because that pivot screw didn't want to come out. Let's see if it loosened up any in this time of the break. So it hasn't. So I'm going to pause it here and come back.